Hey, welcome back to Spellbound. I'm BEEJ, and this is a list of some spooky thrillers that I've read over the summer. Okay, we're coming in hot with Josh Malerman's newest, Incidents Around the House, published in 2024 by Penguin Random House. It's about this little girl. Her parents are getting kind of frustrated with her because she keeps saying that there's a figure who lives in her closet, and she calls that figure Other Mommy. And they kind of just dismiss it, whatever, until she finally starts talking back to Other Mommy, because she's been saying that Other Mommy has been saying things to her for a while. And as soon as she starts acknowledging and talking back to Other Mommy, things start happening around the house. And Other Mommy, she has conversations with her about lots of different things, but she keeps coming back to one question that she continues to ask our main character: will you let me into your heart? Which is it's just a weird question. It's ominous, obviously. Already, you've got a spooky house, a weird malevolent presence in the closet. You have a weird title for that malevolence. But what made this book interesting was its point of view, and it was from the point of view of this, I think she's 7, of the 7-year-old. That felt really neat. The story itself, it's scary, it's spooky, but it's not the story that's going to get you. It's the fact that you are reading this like an adult and you're listening to this 7-year-old experience this. So there's a lot going on that's front and center. It's not just off the edge of the page. The threat is there on the page, and you know what it is, but the main character is unaware of it because she's 7. Very interesting reading experience. I recommend it. I had a great time with it. It was just like a spooky good time. I think I rated it like 4 stars, 4.5 stars maybe. It was high. Then we crashed a little bit. I did read Verity by Colleen Hoover, and honestly, I feel entitled to financial compensation. But at the same time, I also feel like I'm not, because there could not have been more warnings and flags against Colleen Hoover. I'm on Book Talk. I'm on Bookstagram. I am very well aware of Colleen Hoover's reputation, of her incredible lack of talent. This book was so boring. It was so dumb. It was so not spooky. It was so uncompelling. The whole book happened and you're like, but so what? But so what? So this book is about a ghostwriter who is tasked with finishing this book series for a very famous author. The author has had an accident and is still alive, but is homebound and unable to speak or communicate or whatever. And so she moves in with this author and her husband and tries to finish her writing. And as she does, she discovers a journal of this author and comes to realize that there's a lot more under the surface of this author than one originally thought. The premise sounds compelling, it really does. And so I thought, once I started reading this 10% of the way through the book, I immediately called it. I was like, this is the plot twist, this is the red herring, this is how this is going to end. And it all happened exactly the way that it happened, except I was still expecting, even though I knew all of that, for there to be not an additional surprise, but an intensity to that. There wasn't. It was almost like the entire climax of the book was written in summary, maybe 10 years later, and someone looking back and being like, so that's how it all happened, because it didn't actually matter. There were no consequences of this book at all. Boo tomato. I don't remember what I rated it, but I hated it. I did finish it, and that's on me. And then I read The Return by Rachel Harrison. These 4 girlfriends, and they've been friends. What I love about Rachel Harrison also, as I'm about to describe this, let me just interrupt myself with myself. All of the books that I've read by her pass the Bechdel test. I'm pretty sure. Very few things pass it entirely, and I think this one does. It's literally just about women. These 4 girlfriends, they've been girlfriends since maybe high school or college, and then after college they all went their separate ways and what have you. And one of them went off to a small town. I think she went to take care of maybe an elderly parent, and then randomly and quickly got married, eloped, or had a very small ceremony with this small town guy, and they just didn't hear from her a lot. And they were worried about her, whatever, but she seemed to just keep her distance. And then after that, she goes missing randomly for 2 years. So then out of the blue, she comes back. And we don't know where she's been. She won't talk about it. She says that she has no memory of it, whatever, but she comes back. She's very different, and she wants to have a girls' trip. And so they get together in this really creepy Shining style hotel, like an art hotel, you know. They have like an absolutely bizarre weekend with her. She's very weird. She's constantly, so she was a vegetarian, maybe even a vegan back in the day, but now she's absolutely not. She will only eat lots of meat, preferably undercooked. She is emaciated looking. Her hair is greasy. She's got dark circles under her eyes, and she's just like ravenous for meat and just strange. And they don't really know what has happened to their friend, and they're trying to be supportive, but also, how can you when you're also kind of afraid of her? So that's what this book was about. It was another great time. It was scary. It was intense. You aren't sure what exactly you're rooting for in the book. You're just kind of experiencing it, which is a really fun way to experience horror, in my opinion. You're just like, okay, but just what happens next, you know? That's what this book was. And it was a fun ride, and I really enjoyed it. So go sisterhood, you know? And then when I was on my trip, I read Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. This was published in 2020 by HarperCollins. So Clown in a Cornfield is exactly what it says that it is. It's about a small town. There's just this killer clown. Now, he doesn't come out of nowhere, and that's what's fun. There's some decent lead up into this, but it's not so lead up that you're like, okay, Stephen King, let's get to the point, like let's get to the meat here. It's exactly as long as it needs to be. So it's about this girl. She comes from Philly. She meets like the in crowd at this like weird small town, and this in crowd is no stranger to tragedy, but it's the way that they have experienced tragedy, which is interesting. So they are really big vloggers, and so like the author's a bit heavy-handed with it, but it's to serve a point, and also it's not trying to be like super subtextual with it or subliminal. It's just telling you like, here's what it is. So he's a little heavy-handed in painting these teenagers as like very chronically online, which I don't see a problem with, but like they're also very get it for content, right? Which does rub the town the wrong way. And in the last year, there was a tragedy involving a teen who, there was an accident that happened. She slipped, hit her head, and fell and drowned, but it was captured on camera, and they like blame the setting and the teenagers specifically for being there in the first place where they shouldn't have been, which like all teenagers gather, you know. They were like all at this watering hole, whatever, and this tragedy happened. And so all of the grown-ups and baby boomers, specifically in this town, like blame the teens, you know, like age-old story. Except it's not entirely an age-old story anymore, because now the baby boomers are just like filled with lead paint and anger and homophobia and violence that has been like force-fed them through intentional propaganda channels. And so it has absolutely perfectly captured the like violence of the MAGA generation and the aggression that they like, honestly their entitlement and their incredible snowflake nature. And so it's captured that really well, and as the foil against this like group of teens. It shows really great tension between these, you know, two generations and what's going on. And so you have like, you don't have this killer clown coming out of nowhere. You actually have an army of clowns, and they feel justified in their anger and violence, which is just as startling as the violence itself. My issue with slashers is that it's difficult to get emotionally invested because everyone's a little bit terrible, and there's always just like a slight degree of self-awareness that creates a bit of a barrier between you fully and the character's very real, visceral struggle for survival. This book, I think, combated that very well by giving us an emotional investment ahead of time and already building the sort of arena and layout for which the battle was going to take place. You know, so you feel these tensions rising, you feel it as a movement. It feels a lot more than just like random psychotic individuals. They are psychotic, but also they move as a group. It's groupthink, and it's groupthink in both directions. And so that was, it's not like a fun twist on the slasher genre. It was still very much a slasher, but it was a more fun slasher for me because I was rooting for these characters as a group. Then I read The Cleaner by Mary Watson, and I don't know the publication. All I know is it was very recent because this is still technically a new release. So this is a thriller, and it's about a woman who is posing as a cleaner in this like tiny little, I'm picturing like a cul-de-sac, but it's like a little group of homes, cottagey looking homes in Ireland, and she's like looking for their secrets. And so you're like, okay, but what's her agenda, right? Yeah, this one wasn't my favorite thriller. I think there are far more thrilling thrillers out there. It was a neat premise, but I don't think that, I don't think the motivation was strong enough. I don't think the journey was interesting enough. It wasn't full of moments of suspense. It could have been. There are lots of moments of like, oh, she's about to get caught, and then they would immediately resolve themselves in the same chapter or the very next following chapter. There wasn't a prolonged sense of suspense of like, when is she going to get found out? That was a huge missed opportunity. So already, and I called it quite early on, I was like, I'm pretty sure that this is what happened, this is who this person is, this is who this person is, and this is like the real reason behind all of it. Once again, I clocked it, so boo tomatoes to that. And also, if that was the case at face value, I'm like, but surely there's more that I don't know that will be unfolded over time, like revealed over time, that will make all of this make sense on why she's doing this. Turns out no, it's what she said it was. Okay, not a strong enough reason in my opinion. Second of all, the story itself, boring as hell. We are just watching this lady. She never does any cleaning, ever. She's just always looting around in these people's homes and no one catches on. Come on. And also reading about her cleaning or pretending to clean would almost have been more interesting than reading about her searching for stuff. The third act twist, like I said, called it a mile away, but it was once again a so what moment. Like the premise was intriguing, but the story and the plot was not. And how are you gonna call it a thriller when there was nothing happened that was thrilling? Our main character's life is never in peril. Why? Who cares? It's just like a mystery at this point. I don't like mysteries. I like thrillers, you know? I would rather there be a suspense. And there was none, and I'm mad about it, apparently. 3 stars or under, or 2.75 maybe. I don't know. But the quality of writing was fine, and I do want to say that. And then I read the entire Mindfuck series by St. Abbey, or Stabby, on my way home from Norway. And that's a 5-book series. And I read that during my, 20 or 21 hours of travel. So that was a good time. I don't actually know what this is considered. Maybe a dark romance, but the romance is certainly a backseat to the revenge plot, which was originally why I picked it up. So you know I love my revenge plots, and you also know maybe that I don't love serial killer books. I find them pedantic and tiresome. I don't think they have the luster that they used to. I was never into Dexter, you know what I mean? And the thing is, I have rules for my serial killer books. I cannot, with just like a random serial killer of someone who actually just targets random victims, and I absolutely cannot throw the whole man away if the main love interest is a serial killer. That's not, I can't even suspend my disbelief to isn't that romantic? Are we for real? No. That being said, I don't hate the premise of Dexter, and if memory serves, he would only kill bad guys, right? I'm okay with a serial killer with a moral code, right? It's just not my favorite thing to read about. All that being said, I found this to be somewhat of an exception because this is a personally motivated vendetta, and I love a vendetta. I love a revenge. I love vengeance in all of its forms, but especially a slow burn vendetta, someone who has been working multiple years, put a systematic plan in place, checking off names like red lipstick on a list. They have their creepy corkboard map in the corner. I'm about it. I'm about that type of revenge. And that's what's happening in this case, is that it is a systemic killing, a revenge killing, that is made to look like a serial killer, and technically is serial killing if we're being honest. And this romance is between the main character, who is enacting her vengeance, and the number one detective on this serial killer profiling case. He's like a profiler for the FBI. So already I'm like, okay, I'll stick around. I'll hear you out. And I had a great time. I had a really great time with this book. It described the killing without being okay, that's plenty, but it also equally described her original trauma that happened and what she's taking revenge for. And there's no question that it is fully justified. And also there's no question that she tried to get justice legally. That's also one thing that I'm particular about when it comes to books that are very, very hyper violent, is that if they're going to be this hyper violent, usually it needs to say something or have a stronger point maybe about systems of violence and systems of oppression and injustice and systems. of injustice. And that's important. In this way, this is similar in that as the books unfold, you really learn all of the different ways that she tried to find justice and all of the ways that she was denied that justice because of systems of power. Now, it doesn't go as heavy as I think that it should, right? It kind of is really just about class and like the wealthy, and I'm not going to say elite because like the elite aren't in this book. This is like about small town, a small town crime and small town revenge. So that was like, could have gone further, but one way that kept the story interesting and grounded this story in a very interesting and compelling way, in my opinion, was that not only is there this constant struggle and tension along the lines of morality, male main character, the MMC, and he's lawful good, and you have the female main character and she's lawful evil. And so you wonder where they can meet in the middle, if at all. And not only that, you know, you're watching this guy's moral compass not even unravel. That's the thing, is it's just this constant tension. But also there's a lot of dialogue around how he's trying to logically parse it out and logically understand this serial killer through the lens of his actual profession in a way that he's really trying to understand this killer. And not to empathize with her, obviously, but to put her in prison. But in doing so, there's this constant tension and question mark you have around the main character around whether she can maintain her status as lawful evil, right? And that she doesn't move to chaotic evil. Because the thing is, data on serial killers shows that even if they maybe started as a revenge killer, like to satisfy a revenge purpose, once they have tasted that bloodlust and once they've experienced that, once they reach a certain point, there's a point of no return where they really do just keep going. And there's no saving them in terms of mentally saving them from that. That underlying tension between the reader and the main character is like, is she maintaining her status as lawful evil? You know, or is she moving more towards chaotic evil? Because that will change everything, and that will turn this into a tragedy and a true revenge plot. You know, so that was a very fun time for me to read. It was a good time. It was a good time for exactly what it was. I enjoyed this one tremendously, and I rated it for a romance, for a dark romance, and for a serial killer story quite high. I think I gave this a 4-star, maybe even a 4.25. So high praise for me because of the enjoyability factor, for sure. This is not winning any well-written awards. It is, yeah, but it was a fun time. This wasn't the last book that I read over this summer, but it was my favorite in this realm of things. So this is Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix, and it was published only a couple of years ago. I loved this book. I love this book so much because technically this book is nonfiction, but it's a nonfiction book about horror novels. And it's not just about horror, it's about pulp horror from the 70s and 80s, and it was such a fun read. Oh my gosh, I loved this book. I ate up everything from this book. Not only is it Grady Hendrix writing, which is just delicious, right? You can tell that this is his deep passion, and you can tell just how freaking into cult classics and genre horror he is, and you can feel it in the love that he puts into this book, but also the it's not just the shade, but the absolute zingers that he has about these books, because some of them are true, some of them are insane. They are crazy if you've seen some of these old paperbacks. I mean, and he comes out the gate talking about this one horror novel about leprechauns, about Nazi leprechauns in a haunted house who, like, I mean, it's bonkers, and I think they have some kind of a disease. It's bonkers. And the whole, like, that's the foot that he starts on in this book. And he's like, this was the beginning of my journey, so it's the beginning of your journey too. It's insane. And he talks about how hypersexualized these books were in the 80s and how just off the wall they were, how crazy, and the different trends with the spookiness. And then you get into this satanic panic, and then you get into ghosts, and then you get into like fear of like bugs and stuff, when all these different lists, like, as these were trending, and how Hollywood films at that time were having its effect on literature and vice versa. And it was just so much fun to read, and I just read this book out loud. I basically read the entire book out loud to Brett, because I would just read him whole pages at a time, and they were so funny. This book was laugh out loud funny. So I cannot recommend this book enough. I rated it 5 stars. I do rate most nonfiction 5 stars, to be honest, because it most often achieves its goal. But this one is like 5 stars plus. Like it was just so great, and I recommend it. And I recommend it for any level of fan that you are of thrillers and horrors, or even just the 80s. Like even if you're just a fangirl of the 80s like I am. It was so good. It was so good. It was so much fun, and I highly recommend it. And now I want to hear from you. What spooky books did you read this summer? I know a lot of y'all get up into Summerween. Tell me about that. Tell me what you read. Tell me what you wanted to read but didn't get to. Were there any new releases or some backlist titles? Like, what were you about this summer? Did they have a theme? Did mine have a theme? I read some stabby books. Mostly it was thrillers. Yeah, mostly it was more thriller than horror, honestly. I had like 2 technical horrors and then the rest were thrillers. So I really just wanted to be in that suspense moment. And in that way, I don't know if I really was. I don't think none of the suspenses that I wanted really panned out, but the horrors did. So there you go. Maybe I just prefer horror. This has gone on too far. So take care, stay spooky, drink your water, and fight fascism. Happy reading.